course, our own beloved Garrett Evangelical students. We're so happy that you're here. We want to acknowledge the presence of our president, Dr. McLaughlin Rector, along with several members of our faculty. If you will just wave your hands. And we also have staff here at the table, if you'll wave your hands. And everybody else that's here, we're glad you're here. We're especially thankful for our guest this evening, and Rabbi Potak has agreed to lead us in a time of blessing over the food. And so if you will just pause a moment as he leads us.
Thank you. Thanks so much, and it's really great to be here. I'll obviously speak a little more in a second. I'm going to do it the way that I know how to do it, which is the Jewish way. And before any meal of bread, there's two blessings that are involved. The first is one of sanctifying our hands. So I quickly ran out to go to the bathroom to wash my hands. And the idea of that is just to remind us that eating is a sacred act and one that should inspire us to go out and do good things. So the blessing is as follows. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. Which means the raising up of the hands, God who commands us to raise up our hands. The second is over bread, and interestingly, bread, which is arguably the most human-touched process, from the time that it's harvested all the way till it's made. The blessing is to thank God for the God who brings forth bread from the ground, which is obviously totally not accurate at all, because God doesn't bring forth bread from the ground. But the idea behind the blessing is that we acknowledge that despite the many human processes that are involved, to see God's hand in all of that. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech hamotzi lecha min haaretz. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much. I should probably tell you that I am Dr. Cynthia Wilson. I am the Assistant Vice President of Student Life and the Dean of Students here at Garrett Evangelical. And before we really get going, I want to non-violently coerce those who are able-bodied to assist us in putting the room back in place for our 6:30 class. I'm begging you, I'm pleading with you. Please, if you can stay behind Garrett Evangelical students and help us do that, I would be so grateful to you. Want to especially thank Annette Allison Hankins, who is one of the students in the Student Life office and who helped facilitate this event. She's worked so hard, and I'm grateful to her. Annette worked very closely with Tahara over at Alice Millar for several years, and so she's partially responsible for this hookup, so thank you for the hookup. Yes. So I'm going to invite Annette to do the formal introduction of our primary leader for this evening's dialogue. We also want to say a special thanks to our very own Dean of Chapel, Ann Ferguson, Reverend Ann Ferguson, who is a graduate of Christian Theological Seminary and is also an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church. And of course, she's our Dean of Chapel. So thank you for being here, Reverend Ferguson, as well. And that's going to now introduce our guest.
Good evening, everyone. To all my Garrett fellow students, as well as my Northwestern students who I worked with so many times over the last few years, welcome. Sister Tahra Ahmad has been the Associate Chaplain of Northwestern University for over 3 years. She is also known as the rock star of Northwestern because of her numerous invitations to the White House by President Obama. She is in high demand, not just in the United States, but around the world. Last year, she became the first and only Muslim woman to recite the Quran at the convention of the Islamic Society of North America. As you see from the flyers on the table, Chaplain Ahmad is a Chicagoland native in the Muslim community and a dynamic scholar. She is compassionate, understanding, and has an awesome personality and is a great role model not only for girls and Muslim women, but also all women. During my internship and stint as an interim assistant chaplain at Northwestern University, Chaplain Ahmad and I work on many projects together and have become good friends. A few years ago, the chaplain's office and the student religious groups sponsored a dodgeball tournament called Holy Wars. The two of us share a competitive sports background, and the students nicknamed us the Terminator and the Beast because of our performance in Holy Wars. She has a wealth of knowledge and has helped me broaden my understanding and appreciation of the Muslim faith. I am proud to call her my friend and colleague. I present to you Associate Chaplain of Northwestern University, Tahra Ahmad.
Wow, that was a really beautiful and unexpected intro. Normally, when we're over at NUI, some of our NUI students are here, yay. Our dialogues are very, very much informal, very intimate. So this is actually a really unique space. Many of us are really excited to be here because we actually share this campus. And some of our students, when I told them, come to Garrett, they were like, where is that? I said, it's right next to TAC. So I'm really glad that our Northwestern students are here. What we're going to do, if it's okay with you all, I know some of you are still munching. Please feel free to grab seconds if you need. What I'm going to do is we're going to go around. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. If you're a Garrett student or a Northwestern student, please also share maybe a high or a low of the week, briefly, because of the sake of time. And then also, when you think of the word sacrifice, what is another phrase or word or expression that comes to your mind? And please try to be loud because this room is quite large. So I could start actually with my beautiful friend, Beth Kenobi, who will share with you her background, as well as a high or a low. Okay. And then you can keep the sacrifice piece either for later or you can share it. Yeah, sure.
Thanks. My name is Beth Kenobi. I'm one of the campus ministers at the Shield Catholic Center right across the street. This is my 10th year on campus, and I work a lot with different spirituality programs, Catholic undergrads, Catholics at Kellogg, our retreat programs, small faith sharing groups, and our international mission trip to Nicaragua, among many, many other things. I think my high of the week is that Lent started, which I'll talk about later. My low of the week is I'm working with a student who's going to need to take a medical leave. So that's been tough, but I think an important decision on her part and best for all involved. And when I think of the word sacrifice, I think of Lent, which I'll talk more about in a little bit. Thanks.
Hello again. I'm Aaron. I'm the rabbi here at Northwestern Andrew Hillel. A high is upcoming. It's the holiday of Purim this Saturday night, which is unfortunately one of the lesser known Jewish holidays, but is actually my favorite. In short, if you want to know about it, read the Scroll of Esther. And I'll speak more about sacrifice in a minute.
Well, my name's Ann, and you've already heard my bio. And my high this week, I feel like it should be something religious, but actually I was just walking around outside my house without a coat on. On Friday, I just could hardly contain myself. I was walking around giggling.
Word.
And when I think of sacrifice, well, again, you'll be hearing a lot from me later. No, not a lot, just a little bit.
All right, hi everybody. My name is Stacy, and I'm a Northwestern student. And
High or low?
high or low? Okay, so high is this past week I found out from the provost actually that I will be attending an international conference in Mexico for spring breaks. I'm really excited about that. What else? Low, can't really think of one yet. Maybe just finals week coming up. And sacrifice. When I think of sacrifice, I just think of like putting others before me. So yeah.
I'm Hazim. I'm a Northwestern student. My high is this food. It's really good. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of changing your relationships with people who don't have the same privileges as you in society so that you're more equitable, giving up kind of way privileges you get.
Hi, I'm Avanti. I'm also a Northwestern student. My high so far is being able to wear sandals today. That's pretty awesome. And then when I think of sacrifice, I think of giving something up for the sake of others.
Hi, I'm Layla. I'm a Northwestern student. My high this week would probably be having a relaxing weekend this past weekend because it's sort of reading week. But then nearly finals week, so that'll be a low. And then so when I think of sacrifice, I think of giving up something of yours in order to help someone else or to improve your relationship with someone.
My name is Adnan. I'm a Northwestern student, and the high of my week has also been wonderful weather. I'm not a winter person by any means, so it's been wonderful having a change. And sacrifice, for me, it makes me think about like social work and people who help other people work through their problems and through their tough times.
Good evening. My name is Thomas. I am a Garrett student, Garrett Evangelical student. My high for the week was being able to go work out at SPAC today, and my low for the week was forgetting my gym shoes while I was there. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of meat, so I gave it up for Lent.
Hi, I'm Rabia. I'm a Northwestern undergrad, and my high is also beautiful weather, and my low would be all the final years and presentations coming up. When I think of sacrifice, I specifically think of like parents and how they sacrifice for their children.
I'm Anissa. I'm also a Northwestern undergrad student. My high is that I got to spend the weekend with my best friends from high school. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of consciously giving something.
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm a Northwestern undergraduate student. My high this past week was that I did a 30-hour dance marathon this past weekend, and President Obama made a video for all of us to watch, so if you haven't seen that, watch that because it's awesome. When I think of sacrifice, I instinctively think of food because it's very important.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm an undergrad student. My high was getting my spring break trip finalized, and I get to see my family. And I think of giving things up for someone else when I think of sacrifice.
Hi, my name is Akka, and I'm from Northwestern University. My high is today's wonderful weather, and when I think of sacrifice, it is sort of like being selfless for the sake of other people.
Greetings and assalamu alaikum. Hello. My name is TJ Williams Hogger, and I am a MDiv student here at Garrett Theological Seminary. My high of the week is, oh gosh, I just lost my concentration. My high of the week is the weather. My low of the week is ordination, or conversations about ordination. When I think of sacrifice, I think of something that we all must do so that we can level the playing field for all in terms of social and political justice.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Webb. I am a Garrett student. My high of the week was actually walking 5 miles, which is something I had not done before. And it was great. And I don't actually have a low, but something I'd like to, something that, as for a sacrifice, I like to help people, especially help people that are less fortunate than I am. And I like to help people in the smallest ways. So looking for ways to help people on a day-to-day basis, because I believe that small task makes a difference.
Good evening, my name is Samuel Macho-Knaus. I'm a Garrett student. My high is I just got approved to continue into the program. My low is my last name, Macho-Knaus. No, I'm kidding.
Say it 3 times, Sam.
What? I said my goal is my last name, Matutinaz.
Say it 3 times.
Matutinaz, Matutinaz, The sacrifice is, I think, of doing something different in our everyday routine to keep in mind whether it's injustice or suffering or something in this world that we're not often exposed to or that we don't see every day. Or even if we do, we push it aside.
My name is Tom. I'm a Garrett student, and my high is being here. I'm only here once a week for a class, and now that I'm retired and I don't have to worry about grades, I enjoy learning so much more. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of something that's difficult and puts me outside of my comfort zone.
I'm Hannah. I'm a senior here at Northwestern. My high for the week would probably be the weather, and my cousin's getting married this weekend. The low for this week would be the mass floods that happen because of the weather. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of humility and selflessness.
I'm Rimsha. I'm a freshman, and my high of the week was that I made $8 taking a survey. And my low of the week was that there's midterms or there's finals and writing a paper. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of the story of Abraham.
Hello everyone, my name is Dion Chrysilis. I'm a student here at Garrett. My high for the day is being here with all of you, with my family. After a long day with my 1.5-year-old, we get to enjoy a meal together as a family with you all. So that's my high. No low yet. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of a choice and a decision to really give up a desire or a deep need for the sake of others, or for the sake of family or love.
My name is Sarah Egtrep. I am a wife of a Garrett student, but I myself am not in school at all. A high for me today or this week has just been community and family, and just the support that brings in. And we just had a great class of days with friends and family. No low. Sacrifice, I think some words that can define is selflessness, humility, and putting others first. And it's oftentimes, for me, associated with something that's difficult and uncomfortable. And this is Jonah.
As we continue, can I request that you just share either or, like a high or a low, so it's for the sake of time? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Luis. I'm the academic dean here at Garrett. My low was to wake up at 4:50 a.m. today with the intention to go to the gym. It didn't happen. Sacrifice for me is a voluntary limitation or abstention in order to make room for a greater purpose.
I'm Andrea Leftwich, Associate Registrar here at Garrett. The high, to echo Rabbi Aaron, would be upcoming Corn Festival. My mother has recently moved into a retirement home and has asked me to join her for their festival this weekend.
Virginia Lee, faculty member here at Garrett, and my high would be I'm a basketball fan and March Madness is about ready to start. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of my mother.
My name is Rachel Neer. I'm a student here at Garrett. My high is that I got some time to write today, which I enjoy doing. So that was my high. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of giving up something that's comfortable to you to better the greater good, particularly in areas of social justice.
I'm Daniel Smith. I'm a PhD student here at Garrett, and my high for the week is having a much needed, honest conversation with a friend today, which was very good in the long run. And as far as sacrifice, it's hard for me not to evoke negative connotations, but I do think of me offering myself to others, and as well as to God. That's usually my understanding.
I'm Violet Finn. I'm an MTS student here at Garrett, and
echoing Andrea and the rabbi, my high this week is going to be Purim on Saturday. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of courage, because it takes a lot to be able to sacrifice something, especially if you're doing it willingly.
My name's Arshad Haq. I'm also a senior here at Northwestern. The high would probably be I got to spend a lot of time at home in the past week with my family, and also March Madness. I love March Madness. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of my parents and their parents and just parents in general.
My name is Stanley, Master of Divinity student here at Garrett Evangelical. High for the week. I just finished my midpoint evaluation, so yeah.
Woohoo!
And when I think of sacrifice, I think of giving up the temporal for something eternal.
My name is Jake. I'm a Garrett Evangelical student. My high for the week was today stopping and watching the storm drains for a little bit. Just seeing all this ice turn into water and go somewhere else. With the word sacrifice, I think of my mom.
My name is Katie. I'm also a student here at Garrett Evangelical. A high for this week is the engagement of a really good friend here at school as of last night. So I'm very excited about that. When I think of sacrifice, I think of relinquishing something that is very near and dear to us, whether a thought, an idea, a relationship, or whatever it is, in order to, as Dion said, move along the common good, whether that's for family, friends, or people we don't even personally know.
My name's Ed. I'm a student here at Garrett Evangelical. My high is I got to eat for free tonight. And when I think of sacrifice, I think of giving up something you care about to better the world or someone you care about.
My name's Jordan. I'm an MDiv student here at Garrett. Copy everybody else, but my high is the weather. I love it. And my what sacrifice, I think of striving for community.
My name is Ryan. I'm a student here at Garrett, and my high is that I'm going to Louisiana tomorrow for a week for a church meeting. And I think sacrifice is giving up something that I think is important to be able to give to somebody else.
I'm Jim Papandrea. I'm a member of the faculty here at Garrett Evangelical. It's a high to be here and to be present with all of you. And when you said the word sacrifice, what popped into my head was the word discipline, because I think it takes discipline to make sacrifice a way of life.
I'm Laleen Rector, the president at Garrett Evangelical, and my high is actually being here today. I'm so thrilled that the Northwestern students and the Garrett students are doing something together, so thank all of you for helping this happen. And when I think about sacrifice, I think about putting aside a personal need or desire or wish to better or accommodate someone else's need or desire.
I'm Jennifer Brooks. I'm one of the faculty members here at East Preaching. My low for today was having to wake up to come to a 10 o'clock meeting. And then I think of sacrifice, I think of my Lord Jesus Christ.
Hello, my name is Catherine Cordish. I'm one of the librarians here at Garrett. A high is the sunshine, of course, and the water glistening. And sacrifice, to me, the word that pops up, thanks for that, because I wasn't sure exactly what else there was to say, I guess, is time. And I'm a mother, and I somehow being a mother and time and sacrifice putting stuff together.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a student at Northwestern. I'm a junior. High of the week was that I completely finished my laundry yesterday.
Your 100 hijabs?
What was
Your 100 hijabs?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And then sacrifice for me, I think, is like putting yourself on the back burner for something that's like more than yourself.
Hi, my name is Lukman. I'm a sophomore. My high of the week was Skyping with my family this weekend. And for me, sacrifice is giving up your own opportunities and time so someone else can have it.
Hi, my name is Austin Aziz.
My low of the week is that I have a 5-page paper due in less than 12 hours that I haven't started. And for me, sacrifice is giving up something that's important to you for a higher purpose.
Hi everybody, my name is Homer. I'm a student at Northwestern. My high of the week is one of my friends just got married last Friday, so that was fun. Sacrifice to me means forgoing your own desires to come to a realization of a higher calling.
Hi everyone, my name's Adnan. I am a junior here at Northwestern. My high of the week is definitely the weather. As many other people said, it's about time. And my high of the week, oh yeah, I just said so when I think of sacrifice, it's hard to think of anything except besides my parents, to think of what they did to come to this country and to send me to a school like this. It's something that cannot be understated. So, yeah.
Hi everybody, my name is Bobber. I'm a new student here. I guess my high of the week would be, like the sentiments of everyone else here, the weather. When I think of sacrifice, I think of embracing the humility and selflessness necessary to forgo your own desires for a higher purpose, whether that be societal good or your connection with the divine.
Hi everyone, my name is Abdul Salam. I'm a grad student at Northwestern. My high of the week and high every time at Northwestern is being able to come to Northwestern itself. Yeah, it's a privilege for me. My low of the week is the current Malaysian aircraft that is missing for about 2 or 3 days right now. It's not in air, it's not on water. So sacrifice for me is realizing the magic behind the power of choice. Because sacrifice is about making choices, whether positive or negative.
I'm Frankie. I am a freshman social policy student, and my high of the week. What? Where do you go to school? At Northwestern. Because they have social policy at Garrett. Sorry, Tara. My high of the week is for sure the sunrise run I went on this morning. It was gorgeous. And for me, sacrifice and love are really intertwined. I think willing the good of someone else by putting yourself second to their needs. That's what sacrifice is.
Hello, my name is Annette Hankins. I'm working on my second master's here at Garrett, Master of Arts in Pastoral Care and Counseling. My high for the week is this event that I'm so glad to finally see come to fruition. The wonderful students at Northwestern and the wonderful students here at Garrett. It makes my heart very happy. Sacrifice to me is discipline, giving up something that you really, really enjoy, or a habit that you decide you're going to relinquish for the betterment of someone else.
Cynthia Wilson. My high is obviously the conversation that we're about to have. And for me, sacrifice would be remembering my ancestors.
Okay. Thank you so much. I know it took us a few minutes to kind of get around, but this was really significant. This is actually one of the first, I believe, student-centered dialogue, hopefully series, to continue with the Northwestern and Garrett students. So it's really important, I think, for us to honor the presence of each and every single one of you and get to hear who you are and your thoughts on sacrifice and then, what's been going on in your lives. I do have a high, and I will share it if Beth Kenobi promises not to get jealous. I just found out that I get to go meet the Pope at the Vatican, so I'm like super excited. Super excited. That's why she's called a rock star. So I'll take a selfie with him and I'll share it. So I'm really excited. Like, you have no idea, I'm like bubbling inside. You have no idea how much I'm bubbling inside for you. And for me, the word sacrifice, the word that comes to mind is justice. And I can, further elaborate on that when we talk a little bit more about that from the Muslim perspective. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do a very lucrative bio for our guests who are here. Rabbi Aaron actually does have another engagement to attend to, so I will ask him to go first. He is our new, but not really.
So I feel pretty new, yeah.
Okay, but Rabbi Aaron is just absolutely amazing. If you ever have a chance to get coffee with him, I would really advise you to. He has been an incredible friend, very knowledgeable. I think we're both about the same age. I used to say I'm the youngest campus minister, but I guess I'm no longer the youngest. But thank you, Rabbi Aaron, for coming, and we really look forward to hearing from you from the Jewish perspective.
Sure, thanks. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me here. And with God's help, I hope I can share a little bit of Jewish perspectives on the word sacrifice. Oh, do you want me to stand? Oh, that feels real formal, but I actually like standing.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
I'm used to standing. I give all my sermons standing, so.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, good. This is good. I can see more people now. Like you guys over there. So, sacrifice. I'm going to try to do 3 main sections and then 1 final point. Let's see if I can actually do that smoothly. So the first is obviously when it comes to sacrifice, I think of actual animal sacrifices. We're currently, for those of you who aren't familiar, Jews read through the entire Torah, the entire 5 books of Moses throughout a year cycle. The current chapters that we're reading right now are the chapters of Leviticus. The one we literally just read this Saturday was all about sacrifices, so I'm like a little sacrificed out. So that's like the most obvious thing I think of when I think of sacrifices. So now the question is, what do I say about that? Kind of boring, kind of outdated, kind of weird. I'll make a couple of points. The first is totally side, somewhat tangential point, but I actually think in some ways we'd be a lot better off with animal sacrifices, which hold that thought. As an animal rights kind of activist type person, certainly I don't yearn for a time when we're just killing a bunch of animals. But I actually think the idea behind a sacrifice, that it was a sacrifice, that you had to put your hands on the animals, and that they were sort of seen as taking your sins from you, and really viewing it as an actual cost, a loss. In a way, I actually think society has moved backwards, even though we no longer have animal sacrifices. The idea that you can go to McDonald's and get a burger for $1 and not have it cross your mind that this was an animal is actually, I think, a little absurd. Or that a salad costs more than a burger. So that's my very animal rightsy point on animal sacrifices. But I do think there's a larger point about sacrifices, which is the sense, as many of you share, the sense of actually giving up something, and of giving up something in order to have a connection. The whole purpose of sacrifice, it says throughout Leviticus and throughout the Torah, is to connect. Interestingly, the word in Hebrew for sacrifice is korban, and the word for closeness, or to come close, is karev. In case you didn't hear it, it's the same shoresh, it's the same root. And I think there's a deep theological point behind that, which is in order to become close, in order to connect to someone, you have to sacrifice. Frankie, I really think of your point a lot in terms of love as well. And love in the broadest sense of the world. Love in terms of a lifelong partner, love in terms of friends, love in terms of God. There's a Kabbalistic, a mystic idea in Judaism that God created the world through tzimtzum, which means contraction. The idea is that the entire universe existence was all God. So how could there be space for Earth to be created, for the universe to be created, if God pervaded everything, if God was everything? And the answer, according to some Kabbalists, is tzimtzum, is contraction, I guess is the best definition. And the idea is, in order to make space for something else, we have to pull ourselves in. I think it's a powerful idea to think that the only way that we exist here is through God actually contracting God's self. And for me, that very much relates to this idea of korban and karev, sacrifice and closeness, that somehow intimacy is born from a sense of making space for others and making space for a relationship. So that's kind of the general, most immediate thought I have when it comes to sacrifice and kind of the lessons that I learned from animal sacrifices. Second realm is obviously I couldn't speak about sacrifices without speaking about the Akedah, which means the binding, and is referring to the story of the binding of Isaac. This story has been ingrained in Jewish psyche. We read it every year on Rosh Hashanah, on the Jewish New Year. And beyond that reading, it's just arguably the most troubling story in the Torah, and one that Jews have been wrestling with for thousands of years. Interesting side point, Israel, which is the name that Jews are called by, actually means to struggle with God. And so I think if you read that story, it's quite clear that we're meant to struggle with that story. I don't know, I don't want to like reduce the power of that story to just a one-line lesson to be learned, but what are you going to do with a small, short panel, a small amount of time? For me, the main takeaway of that story is that God does not want child sacrifice. In Leviticus 18:21, it says, do not offer your children up to Molech. The idea is, for me, very simple, which is Judaism is not a religion where we sacrifice lives for the sake of connection. And it kind of is putting a very clear red line on what it means to be pious and what it means to be religious. So in light of the first point I made about closeness and intimacy coming from closeness, there's a clear red line, which is sacrificing human life for the sake of that connection is totally out of bounds. And for me, that's the main takeaway of that story, is not God asking Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, according to Jewish tradition, but it's actually the point where the angel stops Abraham's hand. That's the key point of that story. But still, many questions left. Why would God ask Abraham to do something like that? You can come to class, I teach at Hill about it. The third point, which I think is arguably the most troubling point, is kind of to swing the fulcrum back a little bit, which is it true, is there really no time for human sacrifice? Is that kind of like a very clear red line that is never allowed? And according to Jewish wisdom, rabbinic thought, the answer is that there are times when human sacrifice is allowed, and they're called the big three. There's no Hebrew for that, but the big three. And that is adultery, idolatry, and murder. And the idea behind those three, many different people have different explanations, but the explanation that I've heard that I like the most is from my rabbi, Rabbi Yitzhak Greenberg, who says those three sins ultimately represent the antithesis of life. We could go into each of those and kind of talk about what does that mean, how is that so? But for me, the main takeaway of that idea is that in order to be life-affirming, sometimes we have to stand for principles that are life-affirming. And the idea is if someone tells me to go murder someone else, my blood, the language they use, is no redder than the blood of my fellows. Meaning that I'm not at liberty to decide that I am actively more important in this universe than someone else. So if the choice is to kill someone else or to be killed, Judaism requires that you be killed yourself. And I think it's a really troubling idea that you would actually give your life for the sake of the principles. And at the same time, I think it's a powerful idea, which is that, again, never diminishing the role that life plays within religion. I think that the key is how important life is, but that sometimes, almost paradoxically, in order to be pro-life, in order to stand up for life, we may have to stand up for a larger principle that's bigger than our own particular life. What's interesting is when it comes to those big three, there's a very somewhat troubling law that the rabbis developed, which is that in a time of, in Hebrew it's called shmad, or a time of persecution, those big three become the big a billion. And we expand those big three to many, many, many things. There's even one opinion that if someone tells you to tie your shoe with the left foot first instead of the right foot, that you should be killed. And that's obviously extremely shocking, and what happened to the big three. And the idea is that in a time of persecution, we're really standing up for ideals and for values. And that Judaism as a religion that stands for life and for this world. If that is fundamentally being attacked, then there's actually an obligation to stand up for that ideal, which is beyond those three principles, but is actually Judaism itself. And that's a big part of Jewish history, unfortunately. You know, the joke is that, you know, our history is a history of suffering, a dark humor joke. You know, and if you look at our history, it is pretty full of being persecuted. And there's painful, painful stories throughout each of those different persecutions of real tensions and questions of, do I affirm my life and therefore live out Jewish values of affirming life? Or do I give up my life for the sake of this larger thing that is Judaism, which is very pro-life? The most recent examples obviously come from the Holocaust, and there's painful, painful writings of responsa about people asking their rabbis, you know, am I allowed to eat non-kosher meat in order to live, because that's the only food that's being offered. And fascinating back and forth and questions of what to do. And I think you find a lot of different answers. And I'm not here to, certainly not here to judge anyone's choices in those crazy times. But I think really at the heart of those tensions is a question of what does it mean to be life-affirming. The final point I'll make, so that was the big three, and then, or the three, not the big three. And then the final point I'll make touches on what Tara mentioned in terms of sacrifice being justice. I'm sorry that I won't be able to stay for what you have to say about it. I'll just say from a Jewish perspective, it's funny, going around, a lot of people talked about, you know, giving up for the sake of others, and I almost felt guilty for a little while, like, wait, why didn't I think of that? And then I realized that because the Jewish framework is actually a little different. And that is one of our core values, which you may have heard of, it's tzedakah, which is often mistranslated as charity. Horrible, horrible mistranslation. Because charity connotes this idea of I have something and I'm going to give it to you, you poor person who deserve my wealth. Tzedakah actually comes from the word in Hebrew, tzedek, which means justice. And the idea behind tzedakah is actually obligation. You have an obligation to give, and it's not because it's yours and you're giving it to this poor person, but because it never was yours in the first place. And that's what tzedakah really is. Tzedakah is giving what's already theirs to them that you've been holding on to. And so I don't know exactly how that plays into sacrifice, but for me that feels different than sacrifice, and almost viewing it as a sacrifice. In some ways it's beautiful, but in some ways it's dangerous because it really perpetuates this idea that it was mine and now I'm giving it to you, as opposed to it actually never having been yours in the first place. So those are my broad remarks. I'm more than happy, as Tara mentioned, to speak on a more individual basis or to follow up. I truly apologize that I have to run out, but I have another obligation. Do you want to take a question or two? Or?
It's up to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there someone who really has a pressing question for Rabbi?
No pressure. I'm happy to stay for a question or two. Okay. Thank you guys. So sad I can't stay to hear you guys.
So I'm going to ask our lovely Beth Kenobi to follow that up. Everyone knows that Beth Kenobi is at the Shield Catholic Center. This is your 10th year, right? This is her 10th year on campus. I think she's going to invite us to a party soon, right?
Yeah,
we're celebrating. Sure. But some of you may not know, Beth was recognized as 40 under 40, right? Mm-hmm. Female campus ministers, right? Female women in the church, which I think is absolutely amazing that she's right here, and so it's really an honor that you're here. So thank you so much. Thanks. Yeah, please.
So let me start by wishing you all a happy Lent, whether Lent is part of your spiritual observance or not. It's wonderful that in the Catholic tradition and in our prayers that open Lent, we talk about Lent as a joyful season, which began last week on Ash Wednesday and culminates towards the end of April with our celebration of Holy Week and Easter. And these 40 days, plus Sundays, for those of you who count, and realize that Ash Wednesday to Easter Sunday is really 46 days, but who's counting, is really a time when the word sacrifice comes up a lot to ask ourselves, what is that, and what is it about remembering the life of Jesus, his life, his death, his resurrection, his betrayal, his drawing together of a community, and all that transpired. How is it that we remember that and celebrate that? And our tradition of Lent in our Catholic Christian tradition often centers on 3 pillars: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. So we make sacrifices. We sacrifice our time to make more time for God and for others. Often we fast and reduce what we take in, refrain from eating meat or giving up something that we typically enjoy. And we make very intentional efforts to share what we have with those who are without or who have less. And often in a spirit of social justice, we recognize our fasting as an act of solidarity with the poor and a time to walk in greater solidarity with them, and also this wonderful time of coming together as a community. It's interesting, and I'm sorry that Rabbi Aaron had to leave, because one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of how Catholics understand sacrifice, and especially talking about it in this season of Lent, is that in some ways I think we've lost an authentic sense of sacrifice that goes back to our Jewish roots and our biblical roots. And I was thinking about that very first point that Aaron made about animal sacrifice. And what was that really all about? And I think what I came to is that it was really about making an offering. Whether that offering was as expiation for sin, a desire for a blessing, an act of devotion or thanksgiving. But sacrifice was really about making an offering to God. So it made me wonder if somehow in our contemporary day, and even in recognizing my own way of celebrating Lent, if we've lost a bit of that meaning. Because I think there's this real temptation in giving up something that it can become this very inward, personal, egocentric practice. Like, I'm going to give up candy, or give up Facebook, or give up alcohol. Or maybe I say, well, I'm not going to give something up, but I'm going to give my time to prayer, or give my time to service. Well, who's at the center of that? It's all about me. And I think all of those practices, however we choose to celebrate that season spiritually, are good things. But do we really consider our sacrifices as a way of making an offering of praise, an offering of thanksgiving back to God? And not because God needs our stuff. I mean, really, God does not need my Facebook time. God doesn't need my chocolate, my swearing, my drinking, whatever it is that I want to get rid of in my life. What is it that God wants? God desires our hearts. There's this wonderful, wonderful verse from the prophet Isaiah, or not Isaiah, Hosea. Hosea declares, "For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings." And Jesus reiterates this in the Gospel of Mark when he retells the great commandment, "There is but one God, and there is no other than He. And we are to love Him with all our hearts, all our understanding, all our strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And this is worth more than all burnt offerings and sacrifices." Part of what draws those scriptures to mind for me is that in our Catholic lectionary cycle, those are the 2 readings that appear on Friday of the 3rd week of Lent, which invariably is my breaking point. It is the point in Lent where I realize, why did I give up this stuff? And why am I so irritable And why is this driving me crazy? And isn't this supposed to be bringing me closer to God? And I feel like my sacrificing is actually driving me further away. And I realize, and the scriptures draw me back to this, is that it's not about me. Like, God doesn't want my burnt offerings. God doesn't want me giving up stuff just for the sake of saying, oh, look at the stuff that I've given up. What God desires is our hearts. God desires a conversion and transformation of hearts. God wants us to follow him more closely and to imitate him more fully. It's that conversion of heart that God desires. I'm so impressed listening to your own reflections on what sacrifice means, and heard so many instances of people talking about sacrifice as other-centered and pushing those boundaries and getting outside my comfort zone, because ultimately that changes us. It changes who we are, how we act, how we respond to others. And I think that is what a spirituality of sacrifice should draw us to. It should not only draw us outside of ourselves and for others, but in a way that really changes who we are and how we are in the world. I think for Christians, it's really hard to not talk about sacrifice. For me, automatically leads me to talking about suffering. Because I don't think we can talk about Jesus and Jesus as the ultimate sacrifice and Jesus' free gift of himself for us without talking about suffering. So I want to say just a quick word about suffering and an understanding of the Paschal mystery, which I think for me really brings the idea of sacrifice full circle. As Christians, we don't see suffering as something that is good in and of itself, but suffering is only good because it leads us outside of ourselves and leads us to the good of others. And Jesus was the ultimate example of this. Jesus never hesitated to love, never stopped pouring out love, even when he was condemned to die. And it's not in that suffering that we rejoice. Like, let's face it, nobody likes the cross. Nobody likes the prospect of what the cross means. Because when we think about it, and think about the cross as pain and hurt, the cross as surrender and acceptance, the cross is really only something we can rejoice in when we know where that leads us. And that led Jesus to resurrection and to hope. It's not suffering and death that we rejoice in, but we rejoice in the fact that God's love conquered sin and conquered death once and for all. And this is the way, as Christians, that we're called to. We're called to the way of Christ, the way of the cross, the way of love, with the hope, with the knowledge that that leads to resurrection. I think one of the things that I always take away from Lent, whatever sacrifice I might embrace as a discipline for Lent, is that it reminds me that my life is being reshaped and remolded after the life of Jesus. Because who among us hasn't experienced some kind of death? I think both the joy and the challenge that we have in the university environment is that we're constantly in transition. But transition is death. Transitioning from home to college, from college to full-time independence, from full-time independence back to graduate school, from graduate school to, oh my goodness, God, what are you doing with my life? And knowing that all of that is a constant letting go and reshaping and reforming. Perhaps it's something much simpler and subtler, but equally as profound, just realizing that we're not perfect, that we have attachments that we need to let go of. Perhaps sacrifice is letting go of my need for control, my ego, my perfectionism, but there too is a sense of dying in order to be resurrected. And finally, we all, at some point in our lives, will experience real physical death. The death of a loved one, the death of a friend, a colleague, a child. I sat with a woman last week, longtime member of our Shield community, who is dying after a very long battle, off and on, with cancer. And I know that this woman is a living example of what this means to be in the Paschal mystery, to have her life molded and shaped and modeled after Christ living and dying and being resurrected. Because as I sat with her and said, "How are you doing?" she looked me in the eye and she said, "Beth, I'm so excited." She's like, "I can't wait." She's like, "I've been waiting my whole life for this." And I was like, "Mary, the doctors told you you have 2 weeks." And she's like, "I know." I'm so excited. She said, "I feel like I'm a little kid waiting for Christmas," which is a whole other theology we could pull apart. But what it said to me is that she knows that her death is not only Christmas and the recognition that God is with us, but that her death is also Easter, which is the promise of new life and the promise that death and fear and uncertainty cannot take hold of us because love has already come, and it is love that remains. Thank you.
I'm excited and also a little weirded out by talking tonight because, like the rabbi, I'm used to preaching and having a pulpit, but also I can see the clock from my chair, and I know we have an end date. And I think that I know our Garrett students and probably the Northwestern students too would be better served by not hearing 2 Christians in a row and instead hearing consistent talk. Sure? Yes, I am. I will tell you all the funny story about how I did Lent wrong some other night.
Okay, well, I'll keep my thoughts very brief. It won't be 10 minutes, probably just a few minutes. So for some of you, I understand that perhaps some of the terminology that I'll be using, it may be a first, so I will try to avoid using a lot of Arabic as a reference point. But within the Islamic tradition, we have an idea of a consensus within the Sunni tradition. Sunnis take up about 93% of the Muslim population, which currently is about 1.6 billion. So about 1 in every 5 people in the world is a Muslim. So basically, the perspective that I'm going to give to you today is a Sunni perspective on the concept of sacrifice or giving of the self. Every single day, Muslims, both Sunni and Shia, about 17 times a day, ask God to guide them on the straight path. So the idea is that if you are a Muslim, you have submitted to the divine, this higher power, and you are constantly asking this divine power to guide you on the straight path. So 5 times a day, Muslims will pray, and the verses, about 17 times, they will repeat this concept of guiding them on the straight path. So what is that straight path, and what does it ask of the Muslim? So the idea is that if you are someone who has submitted, so Islam, which comes from tasneem, it is submitting to something that will bring you tranquility in your life. And the straight path is a path that is neither of 2 extremes. So the Prophet Muhammad said that if you go towards poverty, that it would lead you to despair, which will lead you to disbelief. And on the other hand, that if you consume too much of this world, that you will be destroyed. So you're constantly trying to focus on the straight path and in your connection to God and then in connection to people. So Sharia or Islamic law focuses on two primary things. One is your relationship to God, so there are a lot of rituals that Muslims will perform in order to connect to God. And then there are other aspects of Sharia or Islamic law that will allow you to connect to humanity, and those are the things that are supposed to help you reconnect to the creation of God. And the idea is if you can do both of those things, that you will be on the straight path. So for example, the rituals include, I'm sure you've heard of Ramadan. It's 30 days of fasting, or 29 or 30 based on the lunar calendar. This year it will be smack in the middle of summer, June 28th through July 29th or 28th, whichever you will follow based on the lunar calendar again. So it's 30 days from dawn to sunset. So it's about a 16, 17 day hour fast. As a child growing up, I used to think like, what the heck, like I have to like avoid, drinking water or eating any kind of food for a long period of time. And I really didn't understand that, of course, until I got older. The other rituals, of course, are that you're connecting to God in 5 daily prayers. So you are literally leaving the world, you put your hands behind you, and you enter into what is considered a different dimension, literally, and you are asking God for guidance. And so, some of the students here, when you ask them, like, what is one of the, what's kind of being, what is it difficult to be a Muslim? One of the common answers that I hear is, no, but it's kind of hard to figure out where I'm going to pray. Because you're praying 5 times a day, you have classes, there's all, they have all sorts of different schedules, but taking that time out to reconnect to God so that you're able to find yourself again. So to know yourself, to know God, and to really realign yourself on that path, on that straight path, where you allow yourself to differentiate between the two extremes that I've talked about. The other main concern around this is, well, what if you're a Muslim and you're living in poverty? Does that mean that you're not able to really experience the glory of God? Well, the Prophet Muhammad would say, well, if you want to find God, go to the poor, right? Go to the poorest and the weakest of you. And so to that, I want to share a real quick story with you. When I was growing up, we were visiting India, and my grandfather is a really well-known scholar in India, but as he was aging, he really kind of avoided a lot of people. He would walk to the mosque, and he would take me with him. And on the path to the mosque, there would be a lot of poor people and beggars who would be sitting in the street. And he basically knew the risk he was taking of taking a young girl to the mosque, because in that area, women are not allowed into the mosque. So he's taking this young girl every day, and he would give me some change and to give to the poor people in the street. So as we would go, he would teach me, okay, this is so and so, and we learned the names of these people. We learned, their backgrounds, their tribal backgrounds, and we would pray. So going to God, the path to God, was in giving to the servants of God, right? And that's really what he was teaching me. Then, of course, one day I find out that there are people who have a contention with me going to the mosque, right? So he comes back to me and he says, I think it's going to be a little difficult to take you because there are men in the mosque who don't want you there. And so I said, not a problem. I went and wore my brother's clothes, dressed up as a boy, and I was ready to go, right? And then he said, good. And then he said, always remember that the second path to God, so the first path was taking care of the needy, and then he said the second was justice. So I didn't understand that at that point, but I think what he was trying to say is that you are equal, that you have that same connection to God, don't worry, right? So it was that sense of, that inner sense of reviving justice, and what that meant to me at the time, obviously, I didn't understand it. But what he also said was that if you are lost, then go to these people and you will find God, right? So the full cycle was that if you're connecting to God, then you connect to the people of God. And in order to connect yourself with God, you are giving of yourself, so much so that you are able to balance your life. So you're not going to either extremes. There are principles within the Islamic law of how to give to others. So when Rabbi Aaron, and I'll close with this, Rabbi Aaron talked about sadaqah. Within Islam, there's two forms of charity or obligatory giving. So zakah is what rabbinical law considers sadaqah. So the Muslim version of sadaqah is actually zakat, which is 2.5% of your annual savings income. So if you're a student who has loans, you don't give that. But if you were earning and you don't have any, extra loans or anything of that nature, every single Muslim is obligated. That money is not considered yours. 2.5% of your annual savings income is not considered yours. If you do not give that, it is considered something that will be taken from you in another time in the afterlife, in a different way. Laugh. Okay. And then, of course, sadaqah comes from the root word to be true to yourself. So even a smile is a sadaqah. Giving of yourself again to be on that straight path, to reconnect to God. So some of these things are ritual, some of these things are really reconnecting to humanity. I know I went really quickly just because of the sake of time. I'm sure if there's a question or two I can take that. But essentially, the Muslim perspective on the idea of giving is that you are really giving in order to reconnect with yourself and to God. And in order to do that, you have some rulings and some laws that allow you to differentiate between what is the straight path, and that you're not meant to be, you're not meant to give so much of yourself that you forget yourself, and that you are giving yourself because man is considered in the Quran, or men and women, as those who consume. So that it is the nature, even though they're born or free of any sin, that the human being by nature desires this world. So I hope that was brief and hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. Thank you.
So we want to give you an opportunity. We want to open the floor for any dialogue that you might want to engage in at this time. We might have questions for either of our panelists this evening, or just an observation. This is a great time.
Okay. Hi everyone again. I could not help, what came to mind as I listened to the sister and to also to Beth, was Isaiah 1. So that, there was a conversation between God and the people who were making sacrifices that were not connecting to the least of these, or the least, or the marginalized among us, those who seek justice. So why this popped to mind when I listened to the two of you was the piece on that if you want to find God, go to the poor and the weakest among us. I was like, what? And with Beth, that God does not want us to be giving up stuff, just to be giving up stuff. So I literally thought of Isaiah 1, I think it's like verse, so it's to come now, let us reason together, saith the Lord. So go and see about the hungry, go and see about the widow, take care of the least. So those kind of things just kind of came to mind.
Anyone else? Before Rabbi left, we talked about the business of the obligation to give, and I think that's the fine gold thread running through each of these conversations. Our hope is that in the very near future, our institutions can together create an opportunity that we might, as community, find a way to offer service in a place where the poor are obvious and conspicuous to us, those places where service has been needed, and yet we've sat right in the midst of a community where there is a need. And together, imagine what it might be like for our two institutions to come together and create an opportunity for service. And so we'll be working on that, and I want you to keep your ears peeled for what that might be. It'll for sure will be next year at some point, either the fall or the spring. But we want to, again, would you help me to thank Tahara for, she was the reason that we had this incredible food. Would you help me to thank her for the food? But also for Bev and for Rabbi Botek and for your gracious hospitality, Dean Ferguson. Thank you so much. If all hearts and minds are clear, I know many of you have to be in classes. There may be some additional food left. If you'd like to take some with you, please do so. And those of you, again, who can help us put the room in order for class, we really appreciate it. Please help me to say thank you one more time to our